We welcome you to the February meeting of the Interfaith Council of Contra Costa County. We're glad that you're here with us. We're waiting for Dave Longhurst, our vice chair, to join us to moderate. So while we're waiting, Diane, would you mind leading us for just a second?
No problem.
And getting us through the approval of minutes.
I hope you all received the approval of the minutes from January 13th, 2022, and had a chance to look them over. Do we have any corrections? Did anyone have any comments on the minutes? If not, let's move that they all be accepted. And if you're in favor of accepting the minutes, please raise your hand. If you have no video, would you please, if you did read the minutes, put that in the chat that you approve, or so we have enough.
Some folks are electronically raising their hands for you.
Yeah, that's great. That would be great. That's another way to do it. Okay.
Thank you.
I believe it passed. No, there were no other comments, so we can move ahead. Should we go ahead in the reading of the covenant? With
I've got a land acknowledgement first.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you.
And Terry Moss shared this article with us this morning. Thought it might be helpful for our conversation, and it's in the chat room. I'll put it in there again if it's not working for you right away. But as folks are just joining us, that's a good article to look at. Whoopi Goldberg apologized, punishing her further as un-Jewish. As we recognize the lands on which we live and play and work, let us recognize that the cultural heritage of California begins no less than 15,000 years ago, and that the entire Bay Area rests on evidence of indigenous cultures. The pre-contact indigenous population in California was one of the largest and most diverse in the Western Hemisphere, and spoke over 300 Native American dialects as well as 90 languages. Today, there are approximately 9 indigenous dialects spoken in the Bay Area, and California is home to more people of Native American and Alaska narrative heritage than any other state in the country. There are currently over 100 federally recognized Native American tribes in California, and even more communities and tribal groups, including the Ohlone, who are not currently federally recognized. California has the highest Native American population in the country, and Los Angeles and San Francisco have 2 of the largest urban Native populations in the United States. Ekanatha and Leonard are going to be reading our covenant.
I foresee covenant. In solidarity with one another, we each affirm. Our dialogue is an interfaith dialogue. We all have different communication styles and varying views. We commit to be in dialogue with respect for all, expanding listening to hear multiple points of view. We realize that we are responsible for the growth of I4C, and each of us shares a duty to interfaith growth. The governing board provides leadership, and the elected council works towards progress and the fulfillment of I4C goals as we grow.
We recognize that we are imbued with interfaith responsibility. As such, we commit to hold ourselves and each other accountable to merit that trust. Respect for the diverse traditions, beliefs, and spiritual paths of all those we encounter, hold ourselves to the highest ethical standards, and accountable to our community and to I4C. Our shared time together is interfaith time. We commit to honoring the start and end times each time we meet.
And Ginny Ali, the Walnut Creek Baha'is, is going to be sharing our opening faith reflection today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm Virginia Ali, and I started as a Christian growing up, learning Christianity and being baptized in the Presbyterian Church. When I came to California, I met my husband of 46 years, who was a Persian background, but he was raised in Baghdad, Iraq. And his mother was born in Shiraz, Iran. We had a wonderful life together, and we taught our daughters both faiths, Islam and Christianity, because we didn't know what God was going to choose for them, for their future mate. So after my husband passed away, unfortunately, he was murdered on the trail by some of the same people that probably put up the signs against the Jewish people in Danville this week. And my heart is with you all, with the Jewish faith. In 2018, I discovered the Baha'i faith. And to me, it was like a divine intervention from my family and my husband's family, that I could find something that I wasn't conflicted about. Because the Baha'i faith recognizes that there's only one God for all the faiths, and that all knowledge comes to us from God, and He's the creator of all things. And with that said, I'd like to say a little prayer from the Baha'i faith for all of us. O wayfarer in the path of God, take thou thy portion of the ocean of His grace, and deprive not thyself of the things that lie hidden in its depths. Be thou of them that have partaken in its treasures. A dewdrop out of this ocean would, if shed upon all that are in the heavens and on the earth, suffice to enrich them with the bounty of God, the Almighty, the All-Knowing, the All-Wise. With the hands of renunciation, draw forth from its life-giving waters, and sprinkle therewith all created things, that they may be cleansed from all man-made limitations, and may approach the mighty seat of God, this hallowed and resplendent spot. That's from Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. I would like to invite everybody. Will already knows about it, but we're having a conference April 30th and May 1st. And the Universal House of Justice on Mount Carmel in Haifa, Israel, is inviting all of us to work alongside each other for the betterment of the world. As far as we know now, it's going to be held April 30th and May 1st at the DVC cafeteria. So I hope you all can join us to share the love of God at that time. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about the messengers of God. The prophet Harold was the Bab. The Gate was born in 1819 in Iran and was martyred in 1850. He was a messenger of God, and he came to prepare the people for the coming of Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah means servant of God. The prophet founder, Baha'u'llah, the glory of God, was born in 1817 and passed in 1892. And we see him as the messenger of God for this age. For 40 years, he suffered greatly to bring peace and unity to the whole world. Abdul Baha is the servant of God, and he was born 1844, passed in 1921. He was Baha'u'llah's oldest son, and he was appointed in Baha'u'llah's will as the center of his covenant, the next leader of the Baha'i faith. We consider everyone in the world to be in God's covenant. And he is the perfect example of how to live the Baha'i teachings, which is to us the way of life. And the Universal House of Justice is now the administrative seat of the faith for the whole world. And the Baha'i faith is the most widespread religion in the world next to Christianity. So we're very proud of that. We go in small groups. We don't have a priest or a clergy. It's mostly lay people that come with a pure heart. And I thank you for letting me talk to you today.
Wow, thank you, Ginny.
Before we move on, I would like to, oh, are you going to share something?
Well,
I would just like to,
go ahead.
just a quick comment. That was a beautiful prayer that you had. And when you have beautiful prayers, everyone, could you send it to our I4C at gmail.com? We're trying to collect these beautiful prayers from other cultures.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's Dave.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
I am here. You know what happens when they ask you to run a meeting, you just decide to just come late, and then somebody else can run it. So sorry, many apologies. I'm visiting family and was with grandchildren and just completely lost track of time. I guess that's a good thing and a bad thing, right? Anyway, but
We'll count it
sorry
as a
about
good
that.
thing.
Many apologies. So yes, the iCare committee has the privilege of doing an in-depth report at this meeting. And I acknowledge Terry Moss, who's on the call. She and I are a great team, and I really appreciate all her input. In addition, Rebecca Seaman has joined our committee. We're really delighted to have her with us. So what I'd like to do is report on a recent project and then talk about two upcoming projects where we need sponsors.
And Dave, we have the video ready if you want to watch the video right now.
Yes, yeah. And let me just a brief introduction. The most recent project was a hygiene kit project where the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Danville partnered with the Baha'i community of San Ramon and Danville as well to do a hygiene kit project. There's going to be a phase 2 of this project where the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Walnut Creek teams with the Seventh-day Adventists. But this is phase 1 where we did 750 kits. So yes, go ahead and let's play the video. This is a video taken on the day of the event, which was January 29th. And I also have the privilege of serving as the church's representative on the Interfaith Council of Contra Costa County, which is the primary sponsor of this, as well as the two faith communities that are participating, the Baha'i community and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 750 hygiene kits, and those hygiene kits will benefit White Pony Express as well as Trinity Center. Both of these are wonderful nonprofit organizations here in our county, and they're super excited to receive these hygiene kits, and they'll be distributed to the homeless in our community as well as others in need. So we're thrilled that we can provide this service. The hygiene kit contents have been funded by a humanitarian grant from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We thank them for that. I express thanks to all those who have worked so hard to get us to this point. Many of you put in countless hours. Thank you very much. So thanks again for being here.
The purpose of iCare, which is a part of the Interfaith Council, it's a special program, is to bring communities of faith together that might not have otherwise met, to do something that all faith traditions value, which is being of service to those in need. And so that's what this project is all about.
We're so grateful and honored to be here today and to accept this gracious gift of the hygiene kits that we're going to be giving to our unhoused neighbors. And unhoused can be anybody who's living on the streets, cars, RVs, couch surfing, or what have you. Anyone who doesn't have their own home. We're also going to be in the business of trying to work with some of the teenagers in high schools who actually also need to learn about hygiene and maybe coming from homes or broken homes or places where they don't have hygiene kits to be able to use. So we're going to be giving these out to a couple of places in the county, and we're really grateful that you're going to be giving these to us. And so thank you so much.
The Baha'i faith is all about love, unity, and oneness. And in order for us to know each other is through service, humanity. And once we get to serve each other, we build that, deeper love and understanding, and we appreciate each other more.
I think all of religion and throughout all of our faiths, we have spent an enormous amount of time and centuries trying to answer that question. And the answer to that question, am I my brother's keeper, is a resounding yes. And today I applaud all of you for being here and trying to do just a little bit to be our brother's keeper. And I say these things applauding all of you for your faith and your example. And
Thank you, Reverend Will, for playing that video. I just as a follow-up to that, when we delivered the hygiene kit, the 750 hygiene kits to the Trinity Center and to White Pony Express the next Monday, there was just lots of joy, lots of enthusiasm. They were so impressed with the quantity and quality of the materials. It was just a joy to participate in this. And you could see the enthusiasm. People just loved putting the hygiene kits together. We had really nice opportunity to interface with each other and get to know each other. And we certainly all of us, I think, made some new friends that we're really grateful for. Okay, so now let's just go to the next week. As our committee has met, we've been scoping out projects to try to get several projects lined up in the near future that faith congregations can participate in. First one I'd like to highlight is a Trinity Center breakfast bags assembly on March 5th. This is the Trinity Center always needs breakfast bags. This is a fairly simple sort of packing where you can do it. You could either do it remotely or gather together and do it. It's a lot of flexibility. And we're really looking for two congregations to take this on, put together around 300 food kits. The number of kits are flexible. We expect that it would cost about $2.50 per bag. And depending on how much funding you have or how many volunteers, you could do more or less than that. So there's a link to the Sign Up Genius here, but you can always just go to the website and go to the Sign Up Genius where you can see more details and you can sign up your congregation. So the stage we're at now is we don't have any congregations signed up unless I haven't seen the latest, but as of a couple days ago, we didn't have any congregations that have signed up. So we'd love to have two congregations partner together, and you can just each congregation can just go in and sign up as a sponsor, and then whoever else signs up, or you can try to recruit another congregation to work with you on a project.
And if I could just add in, we've done this project several times now, so we understand how to make it work. And so once we have 2 congregational co-sponsors, then we will meet with you on Zoom to do the initial planning meeting and help you learn from the experience of the past to make it run smoothly. And if this March 7th date seems too daunting, then we can move it. It's not a hardwired date. But this is a great.
Ekanatha mentioned in the chat room, Terry, that they can help the Tri-Valley Hindu community.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, I will reach out separately, individually maybe.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So we just need one more. And then once we have 2 congregations, 2 faith communities, then if you want, you can open it up to individual volunteers who might want to participate. So that's awesome. Thank you.
And the next project is a Shelter Inc. landscaping beautification process. This is a phase 2. We did a phase 1 back in November where we cleaned up and brightened up the one of the low-income housing facilities for Shelter Inc. in the Pittsburgh area. They have another facility in Antioch. It's actually a little larger facility called Lyle Morris Apartments. And we plan to spread wood chips, do some pruning and clean up of weeds and that kind of thing. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Antioch is all in on this. We're looking for, and we potentially have another smaller congregation, I'm not sure yet, but we're looking for another congregation, ideally that's located, out in East County or Concord or someplace that you feel like this would be kind of part of your community. It's really a fun project. It requires very, very little, if any, out of pocket. We think we're going to be able to get the wood chips donated. Basically, it's bringing, cleanup equipment, shovels, hose, wheelbarrows, that kind of thing, and then going and enjoying in the fun. Last time we had, pizza at the end and we were able to socialize. It was just a really, really nice activity where you can work together. The beautiful thing about this one is all ages can participate. You can bring young kids, teenagers, young adults. It might be a little difficult for, the people who don't have the physical mobility to do, but hopefully, a congregation could find, this is a really nice opportunity for a broad range of ages. There's the link. We would welcome participation in this one as well from someone who's on the call today or in your congregation.
Could you send out that link?
That link is inside the iCare report, inside your agenda. In fact, all of the information we just showed you is inside, including some of the reports that would be in an ED report is all inside there as well.
And I'll just add, we're always adding new projects and things are always changing. So if these dates and these projects don't work for you, then keep checking on the future projects tab. The Sign Up Genius is kind of our central communication vehicle for projects.
Let me just acknowledge, let me go back to the beginning where we talked about the hygiene kit project. Babak, is that the way you say your name, Babak? Joined us at that project and he was interested in coming to this meeting. So he's a first timer. I don't know if you've already introduced yourself, but we welcome you, Babak.
Thank you very much, David. Babak is how you pronounce it. It's kind of like throw the ball back, but it's okay. We get used to it. Thank you very much for the introduction, Dave. And I'm glad to be here. Apologies for getting here a couple of minutes late.
Yeah, any comments about the hygiene kit project?
I think what I liked about it was that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they had kind of pretty much organized this thing. So we just kind of showed up and lined up and the tables were there and it was highly well organized and we got done real soon. And all the people I talked to from our faith communities, Danville and Contra Costa County Bahá'i communities, were just delighted. And we also had some additional people like Terry mentioned who last minute decided to join the communities and come out there and loved it. So I think I'm going to go back to our community and tell them about the March 5th event and see if I can get some people excited about that, because those seem to work for our kind of folks. But I'll stop talking and thank you very much for the introduction, Dave.
Thank you so much, Babak. And while my faith community did a lot, we also had really good support from Gloria, who helped with the planning and everything. She was great. So it's just a delight to participate in these activities, of these service projects, and really encourage as many of your faith communities to participate as possible. Okay, shall we move to the next agenda item, Reverend Will?
Yep.
And I think this is, you know, we actually, we're going to move into our breakout rooms and have our conversation. But before we do that, I'd like to just highlight the rest of the agenda. There are like 14 pages in the agenda, so there's lots of material. I think that says something about how many things we're doing in the council. It's really incredible, the breadth of the work that we're doing. I'd like just to highlight a couple things on the executive director's report. He comments that we have ongoing Meaningful Mondays, where we're talking about the nationalism series that was recently put together by Father Tom. Really, really good. Encourage new members to meet with Reverend Will to just talk about your role and involvement with the committee. Let's see, the International Women's Day is coming up on March 8th, and I'm sure Reverend will send out information about that that panel discussion, which it's always been really good. And iChange, Meg and Reverend Julius have worked just really hard on this. They've done the first round of training for the volunteers, and we're just thrilled that program will be stood up here pretty soon. In addition, they received a grant from the county to be able to support Reverend Julius more with some administrative support and an assistant. For SOJA, there's a social justice fair coming up in Danville on February 19th that they'll be at, and that's great. They'll be representing us there, as well as Meg and iChange. The development committee under Christine Nadeau's leadership is helping us through some grant applications. In addition, she was able to obtain a $10,000 matching grant gift from an anonymous donor. We're thrilled with that. And the idea, once we scope this out and put the program together, is that your congregation, any donation from your congregation could be matched by this anonymous donor, which will make your donation go twice as far. So that's some of the highlights from all of these reports, but just to encourage you to read through them. It's lots of good information in the agenda. With that, I think we're ready to move to the discussion today. And this is, of course, on the topic of just how we deal with, how we work with each other when one or more faith communities is targeted by, negative statements, violence, any of those kinds of things. So the questions are that we'll be addressing in our group are: what can we do to support each other when a faith community has experienced statements or actions that attack their faith and safety? How can we dialogue in such times? What do you see as the interfaith role in supporting each other? And finally, if your faith community were to be attacked in any way, what support would you want from the others on the Interfaith Council? So in our breakout groups, which will be in groups of 3 or 4 or 5, please assign a recorder, someone who can record the thoughts of people that are sharing. And then, of course, when we get back together, that recorder will have an opportunity to just summarize briefly. And when we say briefly, like a minute or less, so you make sure you keep your thoughts concise and organized as you share the thoughts. And we'll try to capture those in our minutes. So to the extent that the recorders have their information in writing, if you can just send those in the chat, put those out in the chat, and we can capture those for the minutes. Or otherwise, you could send them later with an email to Reverend Will. Okay, with that, let's get started.
You'll receive a join button.
I never got one.
Okay, I think we're all back, and or at least most of us are back, so we can start. Let's get started with reports. Again, you can keep your report to a minute or less. And as Reverend Will instructed, if you can send your notes to the chat, that would be ideal. So group one, do you have a reporter?
I think I'm the reporter of group one. Ginny Ali, Gloria Jam, David, Daniel Stern, and myself. I'm not sure that we answered the questions in order, but I'll just give you some of the comments, but that we need to be in prayer for our communities. We need to be on the lookout and be proactive. As Daniel shared, and when we have these hate crimes or these types of incidents, the energy that goes out towards safety and security is challenging because it takes away from the work that the faith community is called to do. And it also, as we talk about building walls, it enhances the isolation. And so one other participant, we shouldn't be about building walls or bulletproof glass, but about building relationships. And felt that there was a twofold question. What do we do immediately, as in standing in solidarity? And what's the long-term plan? Public discourse, social action, collectively and continually. How do we build community together, especially through service? And so I found that it was helpful to receive statements like from the Interfaith Council and denominational headquarters, if you will, that we share in our congregation, so we can get facts and debunk some of the myths and lies, so that we can be in prayer for one another and help build stronger bonds. And we know that everybody is not going to agree with every statement. And so it's important who's at the table writing the statements. But because we're human beings, we won't always agree 100% because language and words mean different things to different people, but action really does speak more clearly.
Thank you, Reverend Dale. Really appreciate that. Group two. I think that's us. That's Rebecca, right?
That's us. Okay, I will go ahead and read. I typed fast. Okay, we need to stand with each other, period. Anti-Semitism comes from both sides, the left and the right. And we need to be allies. We need to call out anti-Semitism on both sides of the political spectrum. And whenever it happens, we need to pay attention within our own communities and address stereotypes when they are spoken and lived. The more we understand that we are all biased, the better we can face the stereotypes and the better we can be at confronting them and speaking to them. We need to teach the children what stereotypes are and that they are not true. We need to serve together so that our hearts can grow and we can get to know each other. I care input right there. And then lastly, we just need to show up and we need to be there. Go to each other's faith groups. Be there. If there's something that is not right, show up and just be present. If there is conflict, this is the baseline where you can start showing your support. And that's it.
And I would just add that Rabbi Dean Kertesz was in our group, and we so appreciate him joining in today to share some of his thoughts. And I think you have some closing comments as well, right? Okay, group three.
That was us. And Erica Baines was in our group. Lauren Stenax, excuse me for mispronouncing the names, Christine Nadal, and Amelia, and myself, Carolyn Peters. And generally we came up with, we need prayer support, we need physical support. And there are different groups that we can get together and build a community with these interfaith groups and expressing personal concerns to those who have been directly receiving violence or hate crimes, and influence our leaders from the bottom up. Require that our leaders respond to these incidents and make them accountable to lead the communities of faith towards universal, universal acceptance and a sense of community among all of us.
Thank you, Carolyn. Group 4.
I'll be reporting for group 4. We had Naomi Ehrlich, Diane Maltester, Babette Kusha, and myself representing Jewish, Christian, and Baha'i traditions. A great discussion, and we talked about the importance of physical presence, of being able to just show up and be present with one another when incidents happen, and how that is helpful to have others care for us. We talked about the eye care projects being a great way of bringing people who might not necessarily participate in an interfaith project, but they want to be participating in a service project. And then the next thing they know, they're rubbing elbows with somebody from a different tradition. Because so much of what we have experienced is preaching to the choir within our own congregations and even in the broader community, that the same people tend to show up for such educational programs within our own congregations. So we talked about, looking to see, as far as educating about tolerance, to look into what is already existing out there. A lot of educational institutions provide that as training for their instructors or for the children, and possibly create something new. But again, how do we get that to our congregations so that it's not just the same few people who show up to everything, show up to that. But we're so grateful to the Interfaith Council for all that they do, and just the dialogues and how helpful that is. Diane and I both took notes, so we'll be combining those and get those to you separately, Will.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your report, Sharon. So now we're on to group 5, right?
Yes, Dennis Wasco.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Yeah, our group had many of the same things that you all had. In our group was Sarah, Leonard, Reverend Will, and myself, and we represented the Christian and Jewish faiths. One of the big things that we, in the first question, how do we support one another? I think a lot of times these things aren't publicized enough. In our group, some of the people hadn't even heard, other than the bulletins that Reverend Will had sent out, had not even heard of what had gone on as far as these leaflets were concerned in Danville. And so to not give people the opportunity to hide, under their, with their the things that they do, but to really publicize and to make sure that people know that this is going on in the community and that there are people of good faith who are working against it. Also, we talked a little bit about the Danville Police, and Rabbi Dan had mentioned that he was working with the Danville Police. Reverend Will gave an example of an incident that happened 3 years ago, and where a young man had made some anti-Semitic actions, and that the Danville Police kind of put it under the bushel basket, and it never got to see the light of day. And we thought that would have been a wonderful teaching moment, and that and all of these instances that happened, we should have take advantage of those to make sure that they're teaching moments for everyone. In dialogue,
almost over time.
What's that?
Sorry,
Well,
we're almost over time.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So let's let group 6 share, and then, but please share in writing with me.
In the
and I'll
writing,
make sure it gets
yeah.
into the minutes. Thanks.
Okay. Sorry, Will.
Thank you,
Who's
Dennis,
on
and
group
thank you,
6?
Reverend Will, for being our timekeeper. So group 6. Who is in group 6?
Is there a recorder for group 6?
Marisa.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was mute, sorry. Group 6 was participants Greg, Jessica, Julia, Ronnie, and Celica. I was the coordinator. Briefly, injuring to one is injuring to all. It was very comforting to perceive and see that 14C was so supportive on the past events, writing the letters and being proactive. And good example to reflect how all these three questions comes about is maybe we look at the wildlife and the lions and the buffaloes, how the lions intelligently isolate one buffalo and go for the kill. So the main purpose is for all congregates that we all gather under Contra Costa County Interfaith Council to be together, to be supportive, and at the same time to educate ourselves more on the security and safety measures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reza, for that wonderful report. I love that image. Okay, I think we're now ready to move to our closing devotional. And Rabbi Dean Kertesz, I think Kertesz, if I say that right, is it Kertesz?
Yeah, Kertesz, but Kertesz is close enough.
Okay. You're on.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone for having me here today. I wanted to share, begin with a little reflection on anti-Semitism or Jew hatred and Jewish self-perception, and then end with a little spiritual teaching. We Jews have never seen ourselves exclusively as a religion, but rather as a people or a nation with a particular religious practice. We don't fit into many of the traditional boxes of what a religion is. And for much of our history, until 1948, living in exile among the nations of the world. And those were nations that didn't want us and projected upon us their fears, whether of our religious differences or of modernity or of change. And that remains true today. If once we were accused of simultaneously the sins of capitalism and the sins of communism, today we're accused of globalization or liberalism, and we remain a screen on which anyone can project their particular fears or hatreds. And that's not unique. That's just as true for any targeted group, whether Black folks, other people of color, Muslims, Sikhs. None of us do anything to bring on this hatred. The hatred has more to do with the hater, and we are all of us, any of these targeted groups, a screen on which people can project their guilt and their fear. But our Holy Torah in Sefer Bereshit, which most of you might know as Genesis, in the first chapter, verse 27, God creates the first man and woman at the same time and without differentiation in the divine image. And of this verse, our rabbis of blessed memory taught that this teaches us that God created all humanity from one set of original parents, so no one could say, my family is better than yours, my people are better than your people, or I am better than you. We are all of us, every human being created by God in God's divine image, and we each contain with us a spark of God. And to hate others because you perceive them as different is ultimately a great, great sin. And here's a teaching from the Baal Shem Tov, 19th century or 18th century, from our mystical Hasidic tradition. And the Baal Shem Tov taught, your fellow human being is a mirror for you. If there is love and compassion in your soul, you will see the goodness in others. If you see a blemish in another, it's your own imperfection you encounter. So take careful note of the flaws you perceive in others. It is a lesson for you. They are your own flaws set before you and a reminder of your own spiritual work. And I'd like to read you a poem by one of my favorite poets, the Yehuda Amichai of blessed memory, the great Israeli poet. In Hebrew, the poem is called Hamakom Shabo Anu Tzodkim. In English, the place where we are right. And because of, well, I'll read it in Hebrew first so you can hear the sound of it, and then I'll read the English. Min hamakom shabo anu tzodkim, lo yitzmechu le'olam p'chachim ba'aviv. Hamakom shabo anu tzodkim, hu ramos v'kasher k'mo chatzer. Aval sfakot v'ahavot osim et ha'olam להתחווח כמו הפרפרת, כמו חריש. לחישה תשמע במקום שבו היה הבית אשר נחרב. And here it is in English. From the place where we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. The place where we are right is hard and trampled like a yard, but doubts and loves dig up the world like a mole, a plow, and a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood. And I'll end with this blessing from the Jewish wedding ceremony, because I like to always end with a blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer ha'adam. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who creates humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Kertesz. Hope I get that right.
You got it right.
Sorry.
It was all good.
Really appreciate your attendance and being here and sharing. And we're, as I mentioned in the breakout room, we are all with you, and we're supportive, and we're you know, when one person is harmed, we're all harmed, and we really we want you to know that for sure. Reverend Will, is there anything else I need to cover, or Diane, anything else I've missed?
I don't think so. The next big event is March 8th with the International Women's Day, and we'll get you the flyer soon. We have a great panel and some great music, and Diane's our moderator, so we're really looking forward to a great International Women's Day. Maybe one thing that you could do is talk to your co-religionists to attend this. Encourage men to attend. This is an event not just for women. It's an event to recognize the blessedness of all women. And we need men there to participate in the program to be able to celebrate that.
Well, thank you, Reverend Will. Thank you all for being here today. It's a great, I really enjoyed it. And thanks for your generosity in allowing me to come late and still lead the meeting. Wish you all the best, and let's all hang together. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. And I think Rabbi Dean, there's if you're still, oh, he must have had to have left. So we can email him if you'd like. He's in the email list from this week. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Dave.